So a couple months ago, I made a video about cover songs I like more than the original versions, either because of sounding different but better, or just straight up better. And since then, people have flooded the comments with their own favorite covers, a lot I never even knew existed. Like, did you know the Cardigans covered Black Sabbath more than once? I know I wanted to make a follow-up to that video since I could genuinely make a series from all those comments alone, but I wanted to shake it up this time and talk about covers I like less than the original song, either because of this time sounding different but worse, or just straight up worse. Now, I am gonna put a little disclaimer saying there are some hot takes coming up. I don't have the most popular opinion with things, but life would be boring if you didn't poke the bear occasionally. You can disagree as much as you want, just remember, I'm some random guy on the internet. This doesn't matter.
I met her in a club down in QOTSA, where they drink champagne.
This one's personal to me. So like 4 years ago, I played bass for a Kinks tribute show and had to learn over 20 songs for it. I still got the set list hanging on my wall. So yeah, I have a weirdly strong connection to the Kinks. Now, they got a pretty good track record with being covered. 2 of Van Halen's most popular songs are Kinks covers. But this one, LOLA by the RAINCOATS, it's not that good. This song to me is a good example of a band sounding loose sloppy versus tight sloppy. For a band to sound tight, they need to sound confident as a unit. The drums are steady, the guitars are hooking you, the bass is locking everything together. This cover sounds like it's gonna fall apart every 5 seconds. The drums won't stop changing the beat, the guitars miss all of their notes, and I swear to God, the bass is in a different key. It also sounds really empty to me. The original had so much cool layering and it gave the song so much movement. You can argue that was a creative decision by the band, but to me it just adds to the loose sloppiness. And that's not a dig at punk bands, by the way. Everybody can be sloppy. Jimi Hendrix was sloppy as shit. You can literally find recordings of him messing up all the time. Only difference is he was tight sloppy, since he would still lock in with the rest of his band. Maybe the empty sound could have worked if they introduced an instrument for one half of the song and then replaced it with another for the rest of it. I don't know, the da-da-da-da-da-da-da is so good in the original, and here it just sounds like a wet fart. We gotta move on, this is too personal. Fade Into You has the sad misfortune of being a great song that every annoying person ever has to cover. Like, oh my god, the amount of times I've heard this whipped out at open mics. The problem too, none of these will ever compare to the original. Like, I'm not saying covers should try to be better than the originals, let the people decide on that one. It's just such a good song, I don't want to hear anyone else's take on it, even if it sounds completely different, like American Football's cover. This version's just kind of boring. It's still the same tempo as the original, but since the guitars are doing more complicated riffs, it sounds so slow. The slow tempo works for the original because there's not a lot of instruments being played. Everything is able to breathe and shine in its own way. American Football's feels cramped. It does have some cool guitar parts, but it would have sounded way better at twice the speed. I think this cover's caught up in replicating certain parts of the original, but then they clash with the new parts and nothing really works out in the end. But I will give it credit, I'm not hearing it in coffee shops, so maybe it's not the worst thing in the world. Can I sail through the changing ocean? This one's basically in the same boat as Fade Into You, where, everyone just has to cover it. It's a great song, just give it a rest, please. But here we got the Smashing Pumpkins cover, and yeah, if you wanted to hear Landslide with Billy Corgan singing, here you go. I mean, there's a couple more differences. The guitar solo's played on acoustic, and I think they're playing half a step down or something, but that's it. It's still just the same song. Time makes you bolder, even children get. Like, objectively it sounds good, but the only shred of Smashing Pumpkins style is Billy's singing, arguably the worst part of their style. Really, the only people I can see liking this cover more are Smashing Pumpkins fans, cause there's no way a normal functioning human would choose Billy's singing over Stevie Nicks. Like, why do you think people prefer Nirvana's cover of Man Who Sold the World to Bowie's? It's not because Kurt's a better singer than Bowie, it's because they made it sound like a Nirvana song instead of just Kurt singing karaoke. Hopefully I'll get on Billy's new podcast and I can say this to his face. There it is again. I I rewatched Bo Burnham's Inside recently, and one of my friends showed me Phoebe Bridgers' cover of That Funny Feeling. And she's always been one of those musicians that I'll hear of in passing, but I've never dedicated time to listen to her. She'll sometimes collaborate with bands I like, but besides that, she doesn't seem like my cup of tea. And that was exactly the case with this cover. It's just kind of annoying. The tempo is slower for an already slow song. It's not at a snail's pace, but you just instinctually get impatient. You're like, come on, I gotta wrap this up. I got somewhere to be.
Surgeon General's pop-up shop. Robert.
Some of the layering towards the end is cool, but it all comes off as sappy. The original was sappy too, of course, but it was counterbalanced by Bo's lyrics. That's another thing too. Phoebe's cover just sounds like she's reading Bo's jokes. They were written with Bo's style of comedy in mind, and also in the context of Inside as a whole. But the jokes aren't even funny anymore because they're being played behind this Taylor Swift-ass, retail-ass, store-ass music.
Hey, what can you say? We were old.
Let this be a lesson to everyone watching. Don't cover Funny Feeling just because you know 4 chords on guitar. Do 30 instead.
I like you better if we slept together. I might like you better.
This is the only time you'll hear me speak ill of Queens of the Stone Age. I can already sense Josh Homme hunting me down, so let's keep this brief. For the most part, it sounds like what you'd expect from Queens. The drums are booming, the bass is crunchy, guitars are noodling, it's got all that, but it doesn't really do anything besides that. The original by Romeo Void has a bunch of cool sax and horn solos that makes each section feel distinguished. The guitars replicate this as best they can in the Queen's version, but there's just something about a brass section randomly showing up in a rock song that can't be topped. I know Queens doesn't use horns a lot, but they do sometimes. They did on Headache, which is on the same album, so, what stopped them here besides, probably studio time, scheduling, and money. But yeah, this one's just disappointing. It cuts out the best part of the original, it meanders, and it's over before you know it. Sorry, Josh. No joke, this was the first cover I thought of when making this video. I am tired of people saying this is better than Rage Against the Machine. And no, it's not because of Denzel Curry. He kills it in this. I think the Donald Trump, Donald Duck line is cheese. Like, that's a meme you'd see your aunt post on Facebook. But Denzel isn't the problem. It's the band. For starters, it's just a little too fast. The original is at a perfect speed where it's both fast, but gives you time to groove. You can comfortably bop, gyrate, sway, whatever. This cover doesn't give you that. Everything just sounds kind of rushed, especially the main riff, which is made even worse, by the way, because this guitarist, oh my god, he is using so much effect. It's so muddy and gross. And that's really it. There are a couple cheesy solos and a breakdown. I don't know, anytime I hear someone talk about this cover, it's always about Denzel's part, which, again, he sounds really good, but his performance can only carry the rest of the band so far. Bulls on Parade is iconic for a reason, and this band ain't doing it justice.
I heard it on my radio.
A couple years ago, I watched The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina the Teenage Witch on Netflix, because my girlfriend at the time insisted. I thought it was boring and sucked ass, but I remember there was a scene where the characters are hosting some stupid-ass party, and they start playing a cover of Radio Gaga by Queen. I don't know if they could afford to play the original or just really wanted to make their own version, but this borders on sounding like Kids Bop. It doesn't sound radically different to the original, but there's a bunch of small changes that piss me off. The bass line being way less melodic, and you can just hear the struggle in Ross Lynch's voice.
You've had your time. You've had the power. You've get.
I remember when they're playing this in the show, everyone in the crowd gets up and claps during the choruses, and oh my god, that was the funniest shit ever. I always laugh when I hear percussive clapping in songs. That's why I could never get into Friends. I know this is a really easy target being from a shitty Netflix show and all, but also because, it's Queen. Covering them is one of the most dangerous things a musician can do. It's like what I said about Nirvana from a few videos ago, but times a million. So you kinda do gotta make an example of people when they cover them badly. I didn't make the rules made us.
Show me how you do that trick. The one that
I've been on a Cure kick recently, so this one hits extra close to home. The Lumineers version of Just Like Heaven sounds good objectively, but since it's just pianos and vocals, all the life is sucked out of it. I'm never against covers stripping a song back. I gave Amigo the Devil's version of Before He Cheats props for that, but that's because it gave the song a completely different tone. I guess the Lumineers do that too, but instead of Feels Like Heaven sounding upbeat and happy, the Lumineers make it sound sterile.
soft and only you lost in
What kills this cover for me is not having drums. I love everything about the Cure's version, but the drums are probably my favorite part. The beat's simple, but it gives the song that extra push that makes it so much fun to listen to. Like if Lumineers still played it on piano but had drums at around the same tempo, it would be exponentially better. Because the way it is now, it just sounds like you're listening to The Cure at church.
the only girl I love and drowned her deep in.
If you want to hear a good cover of Feels Like Heaven, listen to Dinosaur Jr.'s. It's very wiggly, that's the best way I can put it.
If this feeling
So I'll be the first to admit I'm not the biggest fan of Arctic Monkeys. I like some of their older stuff, but if I'm ever listening to something with Alex Turner, it's Last of the Shadow Puppets. But I've heard a lot of covers of Do I Wanna Know. Not as many as Fade Into You, but this song still attracts an audience. And somehow every time someone covers this song, it ends up sounding even more boring. Hozier's version sounds like it's from Bridgerton. This one tries to be more somber and emotional compared to the original, and the strings do sound nice, but hearing them play the guitar riff is pretty funny since that shit's kind of a meme. CHVRCHES' version, on the other hand, kinda gets lost in being its own thing. Really, the only thing that sounds like the original are the lyrics, which I know that's what I look for in covers, but nothing really stands out or calls back to the Arctic Monkeys with the instrumental. Like, I feel this could have been any song, they just made it a cover at the last second.
simmer down and pucker up. I'm sorry to interrupt.
This one doesn't even have the main guitar riff. How am I supposed to enjoy this without my bland arpeggio hooks? I'm sure I could make an entire video about Do I Wanna Know covers, but if these were anything to go by, that would be even more boring than the 10 Commandments.
Another head hangs low.
And finally, we got Bad Wolf's cover of Zombie by the Cranberries. Now, the reason this cover's on here isn't just because it sounds bad. Like, it does objectively. The verses are really drawn out, and the choruses are just literal walls of noise. The guitars sound like muddy synthesizers with a distortion pedal. I also hate this cover slightly changes the lyrics. They say like, it's the same old theme since 2018 instead of 1916, or with their tanks and their drones. I can kinda get why they modernized it, but that just destroys the timelessness of the original's meaning, and it also just clashes with the rest of the lyrics.
And there comes, and there drones in your head.
But the actual reason this cover's on here is for the circumstances about its release. So the band originally recorded the song in 2017 alongside their first album, but chose to keep it off because they really weren't sure what to do with it. They eventually met a guy named Dan Waite, the international managing director for the record label 11-7, which now goes by Better Noise Music. Turns out Dan was a longtime friend of the Cranberry singer Dolores O'Riordan, and sent her a recording of their cover of Zombie for her approval. Turns out she liked it so much she offered to sing on it, so they scheduled a studio session on January 15, 2018 for her vocals. And if that date sounds familiar, it's because that was the day Dolores died. This came as a complete shock to everyone, especially Bad Wolves, as Dolores even left them a voicemail just hours before her death saying how excited she was about the Zombie cover. So the band decided the best course of action was to release it as a single and donate all the proceeds to Dolores' family, which, you know, even though I don't like the cover, that's still a very generous thing of the band to do. Especially since this cover did insanely well commercially. It went multi-platinum in America, #1 on Spotify in 40 countries. Bad Wolves even opened for Five Finger Death Punch during their tour that summer, which had them playing in a lot of amphitheaters and stadiums, mind you. Them doing this selfless act wasn't the problem. It's the fact they wouldn't shut the fuck up about it. They mention it in every single interview from the time, and one they even say it wasn't even their idea to donate the money, but instead it was their record labels and the Cranberries' former manager, Alan Kovac. I'm of the firm belief if you're donating to a cause, supporting a charity, doing any type of selfless act, talking about it every second you can makes you a massive douche. You're not doing it out of the kindness of your heart, it's just for the status, which, like I said, they were getting tons of. And I know in reality you can't not talk about Dolores when talking about this cover, given the circumstances, but I do feel they played into that. Like, check out the music video. It's the band performing with the lady in gold paint from the original, and they try to have some moments together, and it ends with her writing Dolores' death date in paint. You can't get more shameless than that, especially when you remember Dolores played the gold lady in the original too. I also found the video of Bad Wolves presenting the money to Dolores' kids, and while nothing is explicitly said to give me this impression, it just feels off. They're presenting this in a packed venue with tons of fans, her kids look visibly uncomfortable, and they only speak for like 2 seconds. I feel really bad for these two. Having their mom die is already horrible, but for it to be so used like this is just wrong. Hell, even the remaining members of the Cranberries thought it was too soon. They don't go into much detail from the articles I've found, but it's good to know they feel kinda similar. I don't want to say Bad Wolves took complete advantage of Dolores' death to boost their clout, cause again, they were working on this before she even agreed to be on it. But then given the circumstances, it does seem like it was sensationalized. Whether it's the band to blame or their label and Alan Kovac, just none of this sits right with me. But yeah, I'll call it here. As usual, I left a playlist with these in the description, and please give me some more cover recommendations. I love that shit. I apologize if anyone commented these in the last video. It wasn't anything personal, I just feel very strongly about music. It's the one thing worth living for. As always, shout out to my patrons, and I'll see you next time when we talk about botany.